Hey everybody, welcome back to Jet Bowl Central. A few days ago, I did a Retro Roundup gaming segment on Doom 3 in honor of Doom Eternal coming out here in a couple of weeks. Really excited for it. Kind of a long-time Doom fan ever since I was a kid. And you know what? I got to thinking, Doom 3 is great, but you know what? Fuck Doom 3! Doom 3. Nah. When you're talking about Doom, what you're really talking about is the original. And of course Doom 2. And what can really be said about such priceless games, such hyper-violent games that have been both lauded and hated, and everything in between, blamed for all of society's ills at one point, maybe overappreciated at times, but then again, this was a very groundbreaking game. When it came out, there was not anything else like it. It's not the first-person shooter. That honor goes, of course, to Wolfenstein 3D. But guess what? It's the same people who made it. It's the same little ragtag group of rockstar genius game developers, id Software, now owned by Bethesda, and they're still making these games, and they're still awesome. You know what I mean? Doom was developed by this little group of guys, these guys who became industry legends and kind of still are, to be honest with you. And they took their Wolfenstein game, they made it faster. They added things like elevation. They, you never have to load a gun in the original Doom. It's violent. The music is kind of meant to be reminiscent of hard rock, metal type stuff that was coming out at the time. And they've really kept the legend burning bright. There was a Doom remake back in 2016 that was such a great game. And like I said, Doom Eternal, which is the sequel to that game, comes out here in a couple weeks. Very much looking forward to it. But I have to say that when I first played Doom, first of all, let me set the scene for you. I didn't have a computer at home. Well, we did, but it wasn't fast enough to run Doom because it was kind of a hardcore game back then. I had to go play it at my mom's office. She worked at a company called MCI, which, people from America of a certain age will remember MCI. It was a phone company. She didn't, work the phone. She was, an admin type person. But anyway. And I remember, sitting at her desk at her office and turning on Doom for the first time. And, immediately, the sense of momentum and the sense of danger and kind of the darkness of it, the lighting, would suddenly cut out on you in the middle of a level, and you picked up all these beautiful weapons, had all these beautiful animations, you're blowing all these demons away, you're collecting keys, and you never stop moving. In fact, Doom Guy, I think we call him Doom Slayer now, he's basically the same guy, just a faceless space marine having to slaughter the forces of hell after this sort of pseudo-scientific paramilitary organization, UAF, called on the forces of hell. That happens all the time. I'm pretty sure lots of American companies do that still to this day. Standard practice. And even when you're just basically running in this game, it feels like you can't stop. He just keeps rolling and rolling. There's no reloading. There's no stop to pick up this item. It's just constant, non-stop violence and action. And I was maybe 9 years old, and it was great. It was so good. I remember it being very hard. The first Doom game, well, the last level is no joke. You blitz through the game, and then you get to the last level, and you're like, oh, okay, so this is basically impossible. Which is why, you had all those infamous cheats, God mode, and unlimited ammo, and unlimited armor, and all that stuff. The same stuff that Senator Joe Lieberman kind of pointed out, and Orrin Hatch, when they held those Senate meetings on the violence on account of the Columbine massacre. And then, just a little while later, it seemed like, not very long at all, Doom 2 came out. And, Doom 2 is basically the same game. It doesn't look different. There's not an upgrade to the graphics. But there are changes. First of all, the level design is way more expansive. Just going through a basic level, it's got to be 2 or 3 times the size. The architecture on any given level is much more advanced. And another key difference between the original and Doom 2 is that an enemy considered to be hard and impossible becomes very, very commonplace in Doom 2. And it's a harder game, I have to say, just having played these again after many, 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 many years of having not played the original Dooms. Doom 2 is harder. But it's still so much fun. Man, these games have aged beautifully. I mean, imagine being, if you're younger, say if you were born after the early 90s, or you were a little kid back then or something like that. Imagine playing the first-person shooter, the first really amazing first-person shooter. Totally mind-blowing, because everybody knew that the games were going 3D anyway, and this was the first real great example of it. But, as we all know, the history of Doom is kind of fraught. Here is a TV commercial for Doom 2 that came out back in 1993. It makes it look so much fun, but I have to tell you, parents, the older generation, were very, very frightened by this game because it was just so violent to them. They couldn't believe how violent it was. And unfortunately, we have such a thing as mass shootings now in America. All kind of due to the first really horrible mass shooting, which was Columbine in Littleton, Colorado. Goddamn tragedy. I grew up in Colorado. I still live in Colorado, and I was high school age when Columbine happened, and I remember the day it happened. It was horrible. It was absolutely terrifying. It was all over the news. I kept imagining it happening to my school. And my wife feels the same way. My wife is basically the same age as me. And it was a tragedy. It was horrible. We're kind of numb to it now. But when this happened, here's Joe Lieberman, Senator Joe Lieberman. They wanted to not only impose a rating system on video games, they wanted to shut the industry down. They really did. And, looking back on it almost 20 years later, it's hysteria. It really is, because if anyone had bothered to do the simple math, Doom and Doom 2 sold millions of copies all over the globe, and only 2 asshole kids got violent over it and claimed it. They also took inspiration from The Matrix. Well, how many millions of people have seen The Matrix and haven't hurt anyone? But I think that society looks for a scapegoat when horrible things happen, especially the government, because it's their job to fix problems, and the only problem worth fixing is an easy problem, especially when it doesn't make any fucking sense. They were doing what they thought they had to do. Nothing really happened in the gaming industry other than the rating system, which they still honor. Which I agree with. I don't want stuff in the hands of kids that is not appropriate for kids. But, regardless, Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom Eternal, such great games, revolutionized the industry. I love Doom. Really sad about the shootings, though. That still bothers me to this day, especially since we haven't really gotten away from it, you know what I mean? Do me a favor, buy this book of mine, God's Body, Book 1, The Fall. It's about giant God and giant Satan dueling to the death and the global fallout that ensues and all the horrible, funny, crazy, psychotic things that happen because of it. It's really exciting. It's really surprising. You'll love it. I promise. Buy it on Amazon.com, paper, back, Kindle. Don't care how you do it. Just do it!